This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Mac. Come on, there he is. And Jack. And Pags. And Paul. Saturday debate show. Hey, the Roy White book is now out. There's a nice little passage in this book. It reads something like this. My friend John McGrath introduced me to Roy, sort of. He interviewed Roy White for a podcast on the Northeast Streaming Sports Network. I was unable to participate, but I asked Mac to speak to Roy to let him know that I would be happy to write his autobiography. I and so many others have always felt that Roy White's story needed to be told. Mac did just that. And the next thing I knew, he sent me Roy White's phone number. So, Mac, you are now famous.
There you go. There you go. All right, very cool.
Jack's also in there because he's thanked in the beginning here. Well, I got to get to the right page here. Thank you to the many people who offered advice, suggestions, and help with proofing the manuscript, including Mike Whiteman, Jack Hirsch. There he is. So thank you to both for making this all possible. The book is out. It looks great, by the way. We've got photos inside, and they just pop. They're just awesome. So it comes out on April 11th. I'm going to not drive down to see Jack because he's in Florida right now. But when he's home, I'll make a trip out to New York somewhere to see Jack. And in a couple weeks, I'm going to be driving to Connecticut to see Mac, get him his copy of the book. Pags, one of these days, you and I got to get together. And I got some.
Well, I will be in New York for the second series of the baseball season.
Oh, with the Phillies?
Yes.
All right. Maybe we'll have to work something out and get together one of these days.
There you
Well,
go.
I figured you're going to buy my ticket.
Oh, well. I didn't hear that.
You'll be sitting in the bleachers then. If that's
there was up to Yankee Stadium, you said?
Yeah, that's that we're playing up in Yankee Stadium.
Well, there you go.
And maybe, just maybe, they'll let me in with my face paint.
I hope they do.
They didn't last time.
Well, the Yankees are like
just
that.
a small reminder, Pax, the last time the Yankees won a World Series, they beat the Philadelphia Phillies. Just a little bit of a reminder.
Yeah, you were like almost a young man then.
2009. Well, they also beat the Phillies in 1950, of course, the whiz kid Phillies. So
4th straight.
Yeah, you were a young man then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't around quite yet for about 18 years at that point. But anyway, hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Mac and Jack and Pags and Paul and everybody else Saturday debate show. We've got a lot of great questions, and we're going to start off by asking an NBA question. We're going to go a little into NBA history here. What was the greatest NBA player rivalry comparing these two different rivalries? Was it Wilt Chamberlain versus Bill Russell, or was it Magic Johnson versus Larry Bird? What do you think?
Well, I'll take it. It's an easy answer, Chamberlain-Russell. I mean, not even close. First off, Chamberlain and Russell, they butted heads as centers. They played directly against one another. Bird and Johnson, when they were on the court together, they weren't playing one another straight up one-on-one. People made a comparison on Magic and Bird and who was better. Now, if you said which teams had a greater rivalry, Chamberlain 76ers and then Lakers against Russell Celtics, Magic's Lakers against Bird's Celtics, I'd say team for team, it was Magic and Bird. Their teams had a greater rivalry. And even though people would constantly make comparisons, who was better, Magic or Bird, they made the same comparisons with Chamberlain, Russell, and they went head to head. They always tested one another, by playing head on. So Chamberlain Russell. I mean, not even close. The greatest basketball rivalry by far.
I'm going to even throw a little second in this, a little sidebar that I think that the second biggest rivalry on a head-to-head situation was Olajuwon versus Shaq. Rather than like on a head-to-head, when they would go up against each other, those two they would have some wars. And when you think about like when you're putting them all into the barrel, like on a guy versus guy type of situation, that battle was always a big battle. And they actually got to go up against each other in the finals one year when the Sixers in 2001, they actually met there, but they would always meet in conference finals before that. And in the playoffs all the time. So, and Shaq would get the better because he did have Kobe. He did have better players around him at the time. But
Olajuwon got the better of those battles. Shaq didn't get the better of him. Hakeem
I don't know.
got the better of Shaq. No, you're wrong.
Sometimes, but it would go back and forth.
Not. They say styles make fights. Hakeem Olajuwon had the finesse that threw Shaq off. If you went against Shaq power for power, that's where he excelled. Hakeem Olajuwon, with Bakem, had much better footwork. So he kind of conned them a lot of times on the court.
I agree. I mean, there were definitely times when, I feel like that it works, because sometimes the one guy wins, sometimes the other guy wins. When you think about Russell versus Chamberlain, I mean, you always think that Russell won. Truth of the matter was Russell didn't always win. He just happened to have a better team around him. Then that's why his team would win. But Russell didn't always get the better of Wilt.
No. Statistically, Wilt got the better of Russell, but Russell's teams won. So you could make the argument that Russell got the better of it because his teams won, but Wilt got the better of the statistical battle.
We already got the clowns from the outside talking like they have any idea. Again, one time Olajuwon happens to take it to Shaq, and I'm out of my element. You stick to boxing because you're a little punchy when you start talking about other sports.
So let's go back to Magic and Bird. Now, you guys know that I'm not a basketball guy, and Russell and Chamberlain was before my time. But sometimes you have rivalries that capture the imagination, whether it's through marketing or Sports Illustrated magazines at the time or whatever. But you have rivalries that capture the interest of people who aren't even interested in the sport. I don't think basketball as a sensation really took off until, and we talked about this before. It wasn't like the finals weren't even on TV and stuff like that until the late 70s, early 80s. And one of the rivalry that made it so exciting was Larry Bird against Magic Johnson. And if that was a rivalry that could capture the interest of somebody like me who didn't have any interest in basketball, and I was knowing who the Lakers were and who the Celtics were and who those specific players were, I think that you have to give some edge maybe to that being the greater rivalry because it helped the sport grow and it brought attention to the sport and it got the attention of people who didn't care about the sport, like the Olajuwon stuff. Like, I had no interest in whether Olajuwon or Shaq played better, and I wouldn't have cared. But I did take an interest, and I did care enough to at least follow on the periphery Magic Johnson and Larry Bird because they were the names in the sport, and they were bigger in a way than the sport. So what do you think, Mac?
You're muted, Mac.
Oh, his response is the best.
Yes, thank you. I think, Doc, you got a point, but that's not their fault that they didn't have the coverage that Bird and Johnson had. That's just the way it was. I think you'd have to go with Russell and and Chamberlain. I think that, as Jack said, they're matched up one-on-one. By far, Russell was a better defenseman than Chamberlain. Chamberlain was the bigger scorer. Russell had, he had some big games against Chamberlain as far as covering him one-on-one. If you stopped Chamberlain, you stopped the 76ers or the Lakers. So I think you'd have to go with that rivalry just because, you have the two best teams playing each other, the two best players playing against each other. So I would go with Russell.
Well, let me just cut in, Max. You said by far Russell was the better defensive player. I object to the word by far. Chamberlain was a great defensive player. So don't say by far, just say better defensive player.
Okay. I got you.
But rivalries pass the test of time. I think we could agree on that. And today, we don't hear too many people really debating who was better, Magic or Bird. It's as if no one cares. It's as if everyone's willing to say, let's call it a tie and move on. But Chamberlain Russell still invokes debate. Who was better? It's intriguing, okay? Who was really better? Russell, 11 NBA championships with the Celtics. Chamberlain only had 2. Chamberlain came up short virtually every time his teams against Russell's. Was it because Russell had the better teams or was he the better player? But we argue back and forth. Who was better, Chamberlain or Russell? Who would you rather have? But we don't say that quite about Magic and Bird, maybe because Michael Jordan came along and now we talk about Jordan and LeBron.
That could be. And it's not like the Lakers had a bad team around Will Chamberlain. I think Jerry West played with him for a while, if I'm not mistaken. And I mean, it's not like they were terrible. It's just that Wilt dominated the floor.
No. They were good. Chamberlain's 76ers beat the Celtics one year. They won the NBA title. And Russell's last season, the Celtics beat Chamberlain's Lakers in the finals. And that reflected poorly on Wilt. They were up 2-0, the Lakers, then 3-2. And they lost to a Celtic team that was on their last legs in a certain sense in their championship era. And they let that get away. That always haunted Jerry West on that team. Jerry West, who turned out to be one of the greatest executives after being a legendary player, has always said, we had the better team. It haunts him to this day that his team with Chamberlain and Elgin Baylor would lose to that Celtic team. But that was the magic of Bill Russell. Some way, somehow, he always got the job done. But we always taught, I remember as a kid, and this thought crossing my mind, watching on TV, Chamberlain going against Russell one-on-one on the low post, and I'm thinking, wow, I better cherish this because I'm going to grow up and I'm never going to see anything like this again. And I never have.
Yeah.
All right, good stuff. Anybody have anything to add on that one? No? All right, so here's something we've talked a little bit about, and sort of over the last couple of months even, as like pie in the sky, that's never going to happen. But it's starting to look like it just might happen. Aaron Rodgers, maybe within a couple of days, just might be the new quarterback on the New York Jets. Well, Aaron Rodgers wears number 12. The Jets retired number 12 because one of the great Jets of all time was the great Joe Namath. Now, if the Jets were able to acquire Aaron Rodgers, does it make sense if Joe Namath says it's okay to unretire the number to give it to Aaron Rodgers? What do you think?
Go ahead, Jack. That's your boy.
I don't like it. I mean, I hate the term sometimes precedent, but let's say hypothetically, guys, let's make believe Ohtani wants to become a Yankee as a free agent. I'm not getting off the topic, by the way, because I know Mac's going to get on me. What the heck is Jack talking about? Oh, if I'm going to Aaron Rodgers, Ohtani. But let's say Ohtani won number 7 since he was a kid in Japan, Little League, wore it in the Japanese leagues, walked with the Angels. And he says he'll only come to the Yankees, but he has to wear number 7, Mickey Mantle's number. And the Yankees could get Ohtani at a very good price for them, a lovely price for the Yankees. What are they supposed to do? Take Mickey Mantle's number out of retirement and get, and have Ohtani wear it? Some people might say, yeah, if you could get Ohtani for $20 million a year, do it. Jump on it. They'll sign a 10-year deal. Do it. I don't like it. Joe Namath gave his blessing for Aaron Rodgers to wear his number 12. The number's retired. What are we going to do? Keep bringing it out of retirement? I just don't like it. And no, it shouldn't be the case that it defeats the purpose. We're retiring too many numbers as it is. You want to know something, guys? I'm going to be a hypocrite right now, a complete hypocrite. Now, with what I'm going to say. Paul O'Neill, I think, was he number 21, Doc? I forgot. Number 21. Let's say Ohtani needed to wear number 21, Paul O'Neill's number, to come out of retirement. I would be all for it. I hate to say it, okay? But that's more reflection. We retire too many numbers, more than we should. But no, Namath is the all-time Jet legend, number 12. Either we retire the Dawn number or just make the number inactive, okay? Don't give me a retirement ceremony.
Let me ask you a couple of questions, Jack. How many Jets players have retired their numbers first? I don't think there's been that many, has there?
There's been a handful that just, I'm not good on the number things. I even had to ask Doc on Paul O'Neill's number for validation.
So now Aaron Rodgers says to the Jets, if I can't have number 12, I'm not coming to be quarterback of the Jets. What would you do?
I would put 2 12s on his back, double 12, I would call it. Okay, I'd get creative, 12-12.
Well, this
12.
This has been the guy that's been the quarterback of Green Bay for years, MVP, Super Bowl, has always wore number 12. So if you say to him, well, you're not going to get 12, you're going to get 12-12. He don't like that either. He wants his number. What are you going to do?
I would tell him, what happens if Lamar Jackson, as a free agent, wants to go to the Packers, but he insists he's only going to go if he could wear number 12? That's what I'd say to Aaron Rodgers. How would you feel about that?
See, honestly, I believe number 12 is Joe Namath's number. Aaron Rodgers would have to take another number. But I'm not negotiating with him. I'm not the one having him come quarterback my team. So, I don't know what the Jets would do if he said that to him. They'd probably cave in because they want him so bad. As I said,
maybe put a line in between it and make it 1/2.
Well, they would. Joe Namath already said he gave his blessing. He wants Aaron Rodgers to come to the Jets.
So again, Aaron Rodgers has the Jets over a barrel. Whatever Aaron Rodgers wants, and the Jets want him, he'll get. And by the way, there's only been 5 Jets that have had their number retired.
Oh, I think it's 4.
Joe Namath says he doesn't want to, unretire his number. That's where the problem starts.
I was going to give you guys a little quiz there.
Don Maynard's number's retired.
Yes.
Right. Winston Hill.
2 others that I have here.
Is it Winston Hill?
No.
Mackey?
The Jets have retired 4 numbers, unless there's another list that I'm just going by what I found.
Wait. They just retired Kevin Maui.
Jets?
Okay, you got Joe Namath, Don Maynard, Curtis Martin, Joe Klecko, and Dennis.
Yeah, that's what I have. Yeah. And Dennis Byrd?
Yeah, that's the new one, Doc.
Dennis Byrd has suffered a career-ending injury.
Yeah, I remember.
He wasn't a Hall of Fame caliber player. And then he tragically died afterwards. But, yeah.
If it were me, teams have to make a decision. If you're going to retire numbers, then the idea, I'm with Jack on this, is you retire the number. It's out, done.
Hey, I agree. Doc, I agree. But if Aaron Rodgers insists on having number 12, you don't take him as your quarterback.
No.
Wow.
There was a guy, he played right field for the Oakland A's, and he was number 9, and he was a MVP and a World Series guy. He went to the Yankees. The Yankees had a guy wearing number 9, Greg Nettles. So that guy, Reggie, had to find a new number. He went to 44. But when he was on the A's, he was number 9. And I think he was number 9 on the Orioles as well. But he went to the Yankees, and there was already a guy number 9, a great player. So he had to change his number. Like Aaron Rodgers, you're not bigger than the history of the New York Jets. I'm sorry. And guess what, Aaron Rodgers? Joe Namath, it did something that nobody else has ever done for the Jets. He quarterbacked them to a Super Bowl. Did you quarterback the Jets to a Super Bowl, Mr. Rodgers? You did not. You might, but you didn't. No, you don't get to wear Joe Namath's number. And if you're that selfish and focused on yourself, like I will only play for you if I get the number I want, then that's actually a bad look before you even get on the team. So I agree.
Doc, is that how you would talk to him if you were the GM trying to sign him? Is that how you would speak to Aaron Rodgers?
Pags, don't you think the Jets will roll on this? They'll roll over.
I'll be honest. I feel that numbers, you can retire the number, but that doesn't put it out of circulation. I mean, look at how ridiculous the Yankees are.
I agree.
They got guys playing with the, pretty soon they're going to run out of numbers, and then they're going to have to do it. So, I mean, it's ultimately, I think that you retire the number for 20 years if you want to have it out of circulation. And then after that 20 years, you bring it back in circulation. I'm not, because truth of the matter is that when somebody takes that number, you then start the comparisons with that person. It makes their legend live longer. That's why, not Des Bryant, but Michael Irvin said that he never wanted his number retired. He wants to see number 88 out there because when the guy does something good, it makes him look like, hey, he kind of looks like Michael Irvin out there. When he does something bad, he's like, hey, he'll never live up to Michael Irvin. So, and it keeps Michael Irvin's name in the conversation, and I feel like that's what's really more important. It's like you want these legends to be able to live on, not be forgotten about. Because that's what happens. I mean, I never knew Mickey Mantle's number was number 8.
7.
You know what? There you go. Even better. Number 7. But that's what I'm talking about, because we don't ever talk about it. And when I go up in there and I see it for a half a second, because I'm not a Yankees fan, I don't spend that time. But if I'm sitting there and I'm watching a Yankees playoff game and we see something happen with the number 7, and it's a great play, and then they go back in the annals of Yankee time, and they find something that he did that was similar. Now all of a sudden you're incorporating the past with the present, and that's the one thing that I feel that is lost in the retiring of numbers.
I think there are two different arguments here. Number one, I don't disagree that numbers have been retired too much. There's nothing about Paul O'Neill's career that says that this guy is a guy whose number should never be worn again. And what the Yankees ended up doing was retiring far too many numbers. But when you retire a number, part of that whole ceremony is, and no one will ever wear this number again. Number 7, Mickey Mantle. And it's remembered forever. Like, that's Mickey Mantle's number. We've retired it forever. That's the purpose of retiring the number. So nobody wears it again. So then you can't, if you're going to say nobody will ever wear the number again, you can't then say, well, now somebody's going to wear it. So they retired too many numbers. They shouldn't have retired all these numbers. And you should retire the numbers only for certain guys. Here's a better one. You guys are saying, like, you wouldn't say that to Aaron Rodgers. So let's say there's this guy who's like Shohei Ohtani, or like, without a doubt, the greatest new baseball player coming, and he's Japanese. He's going to come to America, and he's going to be he can pitch, he can hit. He's like Superman, right? He's better than anybody's ever said. And he says, I'm only going to come to the major leagues if you let me wear number 42. But Major League Baseball retired number 42 for Jackie Robinson. You're going to let him come to the major leagues? And you're not. You're going to say you can't wear that number. Baseball retired it. You are not Jackie Robinson. You can't wear it.
Well, I don't know if that's a good comparison, because baseball is retired and not a team. But, all right, suppose, Doc, Tom Brady, your son loves Tom Brady. You're a Tom Brady fan. He comes, I'll go to play for the Jets earlier in his career. I'll come play for the Jets, but I want number 12. What are you going to say?
No, they retired it. Sorry, pal.
Okay.
Now, here's a better question. Say it's Joe Namath's son. and he wants to play for the Jets, and he only wants to play with number 12. Actually, if that being the case, he would be allowed to wear it.
No, he
Wow.
wouldn't, because he's not Joe Namath.
Actually, it
That's
would
an
be Joe
interesting-
Namath Jr. You know what I mean? So, but yes, he would be able to wear it. I mean, there has been different players throughout time who have been related to the player whose number was retired.
And
And
it's a great point. I mean, Pat, you bring up a great point. Number 12s, right? Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Roger Staubach. I mean, the number a lot.
Joe Namath.
Yeah, Jonah, it's alive. I mean, I don't see it as a huge deal as Doc does. I understand it, but I don't see it that being a non-contract signing problem at all.
I like Michael Irvin's response, because that was always my thinking. If I was an athlete and they wanted to retire my number, if I was a great player, I would have them produce a contract that I sign that allows me to decide which players are allowed to wear it going forward. If anyone's going to wear it, it has to have my consent. I want to see my number out there active the whole time, but I wouldn't want just anyone to wear it. The team would no longer have control of giving out that number to a player without me clearing it.
It's not your number; it's the team's number.
No, if they were going to retire, but if they were going to retire the number,
Right, but they don't
If
have
I'm
to ask your
Derek
permission.
Jeter, no. If I'm Derek Jeter, I'm retired. No one's been using my number. Now Anthony Volpe's coming up, and let's say he's idolized me since he's been a kid. I'm his idol. He looks up to me. I have a great relationship with him, and I'm like a mentor. And he might ask me, could he wear my number? Would be the greatest thrill to carry on the tradition. I might say, yeah, he's the one guy I want wearing it.
Okay, and then what do you do if something happens in that relationship with Derek Jeter and Anthony Volpe or whatever? About a week or so ago, I went to see a great show at the New Jersey PAC. It was the Simon and Garfunkel story, and these two guys tell the story of Simon and Garfunkel and sing their music. They are spot on, by the way. It was really good. But Simon and Garfunkel were best friends, and then they were enemies, right? The Beatles loved each other, and then they broke up. So what happens along the way if somehow Anthony Volpe says something, A-Rod and Jeter, best friends, and they're not friends anymore. So then does Jeter get to say, oh, now you can't wear my number? It's not your number. It's the Yankees number.
No, he wears it as long as he's with the team. Once he's consent.
What
He
happens?
can't, like,
What happens if he's a bust? What happens if Volpe becomes a bad player?
wait. Look, when Jackie Robinson's number was retired, they waited before they wouldn't allow anyone to wear it because if an active player, Mariano Rivera, had that number.
There were a
They
couple guys who had it
allowed
when Mo Vaughn, I think.
Right, especially with Rivera, who's iconic in his own right, not like Jackie Robinson, but they allowed Rivera to continue wearing it the rest of his career because they knew to pull the plug from the number while he was still active and make him change it. That would have created an uncomfortable situation. Certain players are suspicious on certain things. So Major League Baseball at least handled that, the correct way.
Right. But nobody will ever wear 42 again. And Rick makes that great point. So Joe Namath says you can wear number 12, I'm the guy who can only decide who wears number 12. And then Joe Namath one day passes or whatever. So then the number is retired forever. Like Lou Gehrig can't tell anybody they can now wear number 4.
There's always a thing. Let's say you take a great player, a superstar player who's a very positive social activist and has done incredible things going forward, whoever that might be, incredible things for society. And their biggest dream was to wear number 42, Jackie Robinson's number.
Yeah.
And the Robinson family or whatever said, yes, that would be an honor with everything they've done. There's always ways,
Jack will throw any scenario out there. I'll tell you. You come up with any scenario.
Anyway, I think
let me ask this question. Is there any single digits that are available on the Yankees?
No.
If I was to go play on the Yankees, I couldn't,
Zero.
from 0 to 9.
I think
You
zero
could be
is over.
zero. You
Nice.
could be zero.
Yes.
I'm just thinking of something in reverse. Pete Rose's number, he's banned from baseball. Can you imagine baseball banning the number from the Phillies and the Reds, that no player could wear Rose's
14?
number? What about Rose's number with the Reds? Has that been retired? It should be. If if they retired Johnny Bench's, Joe Morgan's, shouldn't Rose's be retired? I don't know what
Might
the
be. I have
answer
to look
is,
it up.
whether that has actually happened.
Oh, I don't know.
I'll look
either.
that up, but let's move on to the next question. I think we're. I'll look this up while you guys are asking and
Yeah.
answering the question. Who will be Major League Baseball's comeback player of the year for this upcoming baseball season, 2023? Who will be the comeback player of the year? What do you think?
I'll take this one. I looked at the top 10 players that could have a comeback here this year. There's some good stories out there, some feel good stories like the Red Sox pitcher out there. Let me see if I get these names here.
I got his name.
Sale is a good one. That would be heartwarming to see him. Chapman would be heartwarming to see him, come back and play some ball. But I'd say probably the best possibility, and that would affect the team the most, would be Fernando Tatis. If he's anywhere, if he can play some ball, up to what his potential was before he got injured, the San Diego Padres are going to be unbelievable. I think they'd be favored to win the National League.
Now, Padres have a lot of good players. Pete Rose's number is retired, according to what I'm looking up here.
They
Was
shouldn't
retired
be
on
allowed
June
to retire.
26, 2016.
Hypocrisy. You ban a guy from baseball, but you allow his number to be retired. You don't allow him in the Hall of Fame, but you allow his number to be retired for his achievements.
One thing doesn't really affect the other. I don't think Major League Baseball, isn't that a separate
That's a
idea?
debate. That'll be a good debate for another time, actually, but I just don't see it.
Yeah.
All right, so back to the Padres. I'm sorry I interrupted you there, Mac.
That's okay. So I think Tatis has a shot at making a big comeback. And like I said, if he's anywhere close to what he was before he got injured, the Padres with Machado, they're built this year to win. That's for sure. Tatis would put him over the top.
Well, actually, Tatis, it wasn't an injury. It was a PED suspension.
He got injured.
Hurt before.
Yeah, but I don't believe that they're going to have him come back. He would not get it because of a suspension, not because he was suspended for 150 games.
Right.
That was why he's not
Was
playing,
it
not because of the
150 or
injury.
81? Was it 150? I thought it was less.
I thought it was 150 games.
I think it was like 81 or so.
And
They had 81 games left in the season.
And Pax, no matter the reason, he still wasn't playing last year, so it would be considered a comeback if he plays.
So depending on how he comes back as starting in August 1st, I'd be willing to bet that Bryce Harper also has an opportunity to be on that list.
Sure.
Guy I'm going with is Cody Bellinger. Cody Bellinger was the MVP, in 2017? 2019, I think. Let's see. Yeah, he was the MVP in 2019 when he blasted 47 homers and batted .305. Since then, his batting averages have been .239, .165, and .210, and his homers have been 12, 10, and 19. Those are all numbers for the Dodgers. But Bellinger is now a Cub. He's going to be playing in the confines of Wrigley Field. And I just have a sense he's only going to be 27 years old. He's not an old guy yet. That he could come back and have a huge year for the Cubs and be the comeback player of the year. What do you think, Jack?
You guys are getting me to doubt myself. Listening to you all makes sense. It's criteria. The guy I was going to say, would it really be considered a comeback per se? I was going to say Chris Sale.
That's a good one.
Pitcher, one of the best pitchers in baseball, but it's injuries that have been his problem, not performance itself. And if his performance was dipping a little bit, it was because he was hurt. And I think I hear Chris Sale is now healthy. He could take over as ace of the Red Sox staff and prove himself to be one of the best pitchers in baseball. But the more the more I listen to you guys, and you all make a good argument, is that really the criteria? Cody Bellinger would be the criteria, guys whose performance really dipped. Matt, who you mentioned Chapman, that's intriguing. If he could get back to his old self, he would be a candidate. It wasn't injuries. Chapman just became bad. I could throw out a name that'll make you guys laugh, like Josh Donaldson. Okay? But he would be eligible because he just forgot how to hit. And all of a sudden, if he could hit again after not hitting for about 3 years, that would be a great answer. But not sure what the criteria is. Exactly.
I think the criteria is just you come back, you had a bad year. I think you have to have been a pretty good player ahead of time usually, and then you come back to becoming a pretty good player again. I think that's how they do it.
What happens if you're injured for the year? And that's
because you didn't play, and there's no guarantee could ever come back from an injury. So I think then you're a comeback player candidate.
Sure.
Well, with that the case, I would say Chris Sale. Okay, who I'd be looking to have if he's healthy, a big bounce back. Yeah, but the things all you guys are mentioning, all the points are very, well taken. I don't think a guy like Bryce Harper, who was very good when he got injured, he wasn't bad. It wasn't like he wasn't performing and then he was injured and he was out. That's not really a comeback. He was kind of just put on pause that moment, for a period of time. It's the guys who really haven't delivered Chris Sale hasn't delivered for a long time because of injuries. And that's why I would be picking him. But we'll see. It's intriguing. Someone's going to, have a nice bounce back. Yeah, we'll see who it is.
Last year, I gained so much respect for Harper playing with basically one arm and still hitting home runs and stuff. That guy's an animal. He really is.
And he should have been a Yankee, but we'll just leave that alone for now.
Still crying. Right there. Just like a New Yorker, still crying.
Always. I'll always bemoan the fact the Yankees didn't get Harper. I mean, that was predestined. That was supposed to happen. Oh boy. Hey, speaking of New Yorker, there's a manager who's the manager of the New York Mets, who's been a pretty good manager. Buck Showalter. Does Buck Showalter need to win a World Series or at least even get to the World Series in order to make it someday into the Baseball Hall of Fame? What do you think?
Go ahead, Doc.
Oh, you want me to go first? I think Buck Showalter right now I think he's a great manager. I loved him as the Yankee manager. I would much prefer him to Aaron Boone. I think he's a much better manager than Aaron Boone. People can show you that Aaron Boone wins and has won more pennants than Buck Showalter, etc. I just think Buck's a great, great manager. Does Buck have the resume yet to be a Hall of Famer? I don't think so. I think the thing that probably helped Dusty Baker get over the hump is the fact when he retires, he'll get in the Hall of Fame because he finally won a World Series. I think if you're a manager, it's tough to get into the Hall of Fame without being a guy who won the World Series. It's sort of like if managers mean anything, well, then a manager's got to be able to guide his team to a World Series. So I love Buck. I'd love him to be the Yankee manager. In fact, I don't even root against the Mets because I want him to be successful. But I don't think he's a Hall of Famer yet.
My answer is yes, he's going to get in. Something Max said a while ago makes a lot of sense. It's all about relationships. And let's face it, Buck Showalter's a baseball lifer. And eventually he'll get around to these veterans committee guys who've either played for him, done business with him, hung out with him, or just flat out respect him. Okay, and they know what a smart baseball guy he is, what a good baseball guy he is. So he didn't get to a World Series. They're going to say, well, it's not really Buck's fault. They're going to say, had Buck hung around one more year, he would have won all the World Series instead of Joe Torre. And they would have made that point. Then they're going to say, well, wasn't Buck manager of the year with the Diamondbacks and with the Orioles and you know, they're going to rationalize how close Buck came. Then they're going to look at his winning percentage, his this, his that. They'll find a reason, you know, these committees, these veteran committees, or whatever you want to call them, to eventually get Buck Showalter into the Baseball Hall of Fame, because it's about relationships. And I don't mean this in a bad way at all, even though it's going to sound bad. He's part of the old boy network at this point, and that helps get you over the top.
Well, from what I see, there's 4 managers that have been inducted to the Hall of Fame and not winning a World Series. And Al Lopez, Wilbert Robertson, Ned Hampton, and Frank Salee. They never won a World Series, and they're in the Hall of Fame right now. I think Buck Showalter deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. He's built teams. He's taken teams to playoffs. I think there's something to be said about longevity in baseball. I think there's something to be said about, I don't know what his winning percentage is. I know he's won more games than he's lost, but Jack's right. Relationships. He's famous, which is very important. And I just like the first name Buck. Anybody named Buck that's in sports deserves a shot at going into the Hall of Fame. And I think he should be going in.
I'm trying to pull up managers with 1,000 or more wins. Gene Mauch was a manager. In fact, he managed the Phillies for quite a while. Has 1,902 wins. Never won a World Series. He is not in the Hall of Fame. Buck Showalter's won 1,652 games. I just the names you said, Mac, were guys from different eras. It could happen. Buck Showalter, I think, is a great manager. I've said that. I don't think he's a Hall of Fame manager without a World Series. Pags, you haven't jumped in on this one.
Well, I mean, I with the Baseball Hall of Fame, it's like the Hall of a somewhat good anymore. So why not have him in there? It's just like it's, we're not going to have certain players in. We're going to be able to vote certain people in. I mean, they brought in, the guy that did the one person who's getting inducted into the Hall of Fame this year, I feel is like the most ridiculous choice out of anybody that they could have put in there. They put in Scott Rowland. Scott Rowland wasn't a Hall of Famer. And the fact that he's inducted into the Hall of Fame this year, I feel is just apropos to the Baseball Hall of somewhat good anymore. So sure, put him in there. Everybody else is.
Here's a manager who did win a World Series, who has more wins than Buck Showalter, 1,835. He was also a very good baseball player for quite a long time. His name, Lou Piniella. Does Lou Piniella deserve to go into the Hall of Fame?
Wow. You know, I never even thought of that. If you put Buck Showalter in and don't put Lou Piniella in, you could then make an argument, but Lou Piniella was a player. He was at least a decent player, not close to a Hall of Fame player, but a good, serviceable player for a lot of years. And he was a 2-time World Series champion as a player with the Yankees. Won the World Series as manager of the Cincinnati Reds. Led the Seattle Mariners to 116 wins. So even forget the player Lou Piniella was, you can maybe make an argument he was a better manager.
He's got 200 more wins than Buck Showalter.
But see, that's
again
the problem. The problem with the Baseball Hall of Fame, you got people in there that shouldn't be in there, and you got people, that aren't in there that should be in there. That's the big problem they have with the Hall of Fame right now.
Don't disagree. Jim Leyland is not in the Hall of Fame as a manager. He won 1,769 games.
Greater manager than Buck Showalter. No matter how many wins Buck Showalter winds up with, eventually he'll wind up with more. Jim Leyland was a better higher profile manager than Buck Showalter. So how can you put Buck Showalter in and not Jim Leyland? As far as Gene Mauch went, you mentioned him. He came one strike away from going to the World Series as manager, 1986 Angels. And then when he was manager of the 1964 Philadelphia Phillies, I repeat, Philadelphia Phillies, listen to this. The Phillies had a 6-game lead with 10 games to play. And Mark panicked. His two aces, Jim Bunning and Chris Short, he kept pitching them on 2 days rest. 2 days rest.
And you could, it's arguably that's the reason why he's not in the Hall of Fame.
Could be.
Because he was never able to outlive that.
I just want to say something for you, Doc. Mac knows this already. He's heard of this. Sour grapes on Pac's part about Scott Rowland, because
Not sour grapes.
Played more games for the Phillies than he did for the Cardinals, but Scott Rowland wants to go in as a St. Louis Cardinal because he feels the city of St. Louis is a lot more classier than Philadelphia.
Yeah, I don't have sour grapes. I just have a problem with the Baseball Hall of Fame. That's what I have the problem with. You know, God bless that he's in there. Like I said, it's the Hall of Somewhat Good. So the fact that he was able to get in among all those other players that haven't gotten in there yet, i.e., like we could start from the very, very top at Pete Rose because of all that stuff, and then all the PED guys and such like that are not going to get in because the writers have never sinned before in their lives. I mean, it's becoming a farce. That's the problem. That the Hall of Fame is laughable in baseball. That's what's the problem. That, we want the home runs. We want the home runs. Now we're going to say, hey, now we're going to chastise all the people that saved baseball. That's what saved baseball. That the McGuire and Sosa's home run, when that was going on, that brought people back to the ballpark because people weren't going. America's pastime was dead after that one strike. And that's what brought people back to home runs. And baseball was just like, we don't see nothing. Let's keep on hitting them home runs. We're going to juice the ball to help it. All those things. And now they're going to be chastised for it. Get the hell out of here. Scott Rowland is not worthy by a long shot. Any other sports Hall of Fame, if he played any other sport and had those types of numbers, wouldn't even sniff the Hall of Fame. But baseball, got to have somebody go in. Let's make it Scott Rowland. He wasn't even the best third baseman of his time. He wasn't even in that competition.
Actually, but we won't get into the argument. But if you look at WAR at third base, he is one of the great third basemen of all time.
Doc putting in a possible vote. If Doc were voter packs, he may have. I can't speak.
One day when we have all 2 hours to dedicate to what WAR actually is, then he can tell us what that equation is. But it'll take the whole 2-hour show.
WAR is overrated. It always has been. Home runs, RBIs, walks are all part of the game. Give me the average home runs and RBIs, and I'm happy. That'll tell me what a player does.
Well, according to WAR, they had that age-old argument when they were in their prime. Who was better, Mickey Mantle or Willie Mays? Eventually, because Mantle faded out the last few years of his career, Mays was able to play longer. Virtually everyone says Willie Mays. But if you look at WAR, isn't Mantle substantially better than Willie Mays?
I actually have an article on that coming up on. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I'd have to pull the article up, but I have an article on that coming in a short while on Start Spreading the News, where if you break down certain numbers, and it doesn't even just have to be WAR. Like there's a OPS, on base plus slugging, and OPS plus, and things like that, where there were years when Mickey Mantle was absolutely better than Willie Mays. Willie Mays had a longer career, but there were years that Willie Mays, some of Willie Mays' best years come up short compared to Mickey Mantle's best years. I mean, they're close, but Mickey Mantle had some better years, but I'd have to pull those numbers up. I have to give you the actual percentages and all that. But this isn't a debate today to talk about advanced stats and things like that. But Scott Rowland, if you look at the accumulation of what he did over the course of his career, was and third base is also one of the most unrepresented position, I believe, in the Hall of Fame. There's fewer third basemen in the Hall of Fame. And when you compare him to guys like Ron Santo and other guys who are already in the Hall of Fame, he's just as good, if not better, than all those guys. So he does deserve to be there. But we'll save that argument for another day.
I guess, first off, the first person that comes to my mind at third base is Ken Caminiti. Is he in the Hall of Fame?
He's not.
I would try to compare it against him. And that's the person, like I said, it's the first person that comes to my mind that I would like to see how those two compare. And if because of that, like I think that they're probably comparable. And the fact that Cam isn't, and or Ken Caminiti and Roland is laughable to me.
Okay, but let me throw this argument. For example, no one thinks that Craig Nettles is a Hall of Fame, and he's not in the Hall of Fame. But if I'm going to give you a basic argument, and if I'm going to say to you, Craig Nettles is one of the top 3 defensive third basemen in the history of baseball, can you really argue against it? Can you name me 3 guys who are better? You might say, well, maybe Brooks Robinson, and that's even debatable. But you could say that. Then what are you going to tell me after that? What?
Mike Schmidt.
No, not better than Craig Nettles defensively. No way. No way. And no offense, it's not even close, Schmidt and Nettles.
I mean, how many Gold Gloves did Schmidt win? I mean, I now we're talking about my history that I don't really know too much about. But
Schmidt was a very good defensive third baseman. Nettles was an all-time great defensive third baseman. You're talking about a very good defensive third baseman, Schmidt. Nettles was a magician with the glove there, third.
Now, listen, I'm a little biased. Nettles is my guy. Here he is right here. Nettles belongs in the Hall of Fame. I've written about that extensively as well. Nettles only won 2 Gold Gloves, but the reason he only won 2 Gold Gloves is that Brooks Robinson won 620. And every year when they picked the Gold Glove, they just went, oh, third base, Brooks Robinson. I've written and I've posted articles showing that there were numerous years, not many, but there were numerous years from 1970 to 75 when Brooks was winning those Gold Gloves that Nettles was actually the superior fielder. If you look at every statistic, putouts, double plays turned, assists, etc. You want to talk about WAR? Most people don't know this, but the player in the American League who led all position players in WAR in 1971, they didn't have the statistic back then, of course, was Greg Nettles. And in 1976, the player who led the American League in position player WAR was Greg Nettles. Nettles is a Hall of Famer. He's not in there, but he compares very favorably to Scott Rowland. Ken Caminiti's not even in that discussion.
Let me just point out, I know we're a little off topic. Not only Pags is Nettles not in Cooperstown, the Yankees don't even have him in Monument Park. You know, when Reggie came over to the Yankees, big power hitter, Nettles led the team in homers, not Reggie. Mm-hmm. And he played and was the best defensive third baseman in baseball and led the team in homers. But Reggie got the headlines. He couldn't even catch a ball in right field, Reggie. He was so bad in the beginning. But Reggie had the charisma. Nettles even had better power numbers than him, in the beginning. The first couple of years, I think, total homers were either the same or a little ahead of Reggie's.
Yep.
Not counting the World Series where Reggie had to burst to 5. I'm talking about regular season.
Mm-hmm.
It's great stuff. Nettles also belongs in Monument Park. The Yankees have a bunch of guys that belong in Monument Park who aren't there, including Roy White. Yep. Roy White belongs in Monument Park. It's just silly that he's not there.
I'm putting you on the spot, Doc. Has to like this one. Who is better, Roy White, Lenny Dykstra? It's tough.
Oh, it's not even a question. Roy White's a better player than Lenny Dykstra. And again, Dykstra had a couple of big years. Were they fueled by performance enhancers? Probably. Dykstra's not in Roy White's ballpark. And by the way, Ken Caminiti, according to WAR, the on Baseball Reference, I think came in as the 61st greatest third baseman of all time. Ken Caminiti. He earned only 33.4 WAR. And if you go to Scott Rowland earned 70.1. The industry standard is usually 60. If you have 60 or above, you're a borderline Hall of Famer. Rowland has 70. So he's more than a borderline Hall of Famer. He belongs there. But Dykstra's not in.
WAR stat.
No,
The eye test doesn't really do it, but the WAR stat does it.
Well, the WAR stat is a statistic that encompasses all the other numbers.
Who's going to win the MVP in basketball, because we can make all of these different statistics say whatever we want them to, and because of that, that's going to be great. They're going to have. He had a great career. I mean, that's kind of what I'm getting at here. It's now we got this statistic that makes things so much different because of Moneyball. So I don't think that Scott Rowland wasn't even the best third baseman during his time out there. That's what I'm getting at. That there were better third basemen by far during that time.
I think that baseball went through kind of a lull, for a certain time. And I think it's starting to come back now. You're starting to get the great players again. You got Trout, you got Ohtani, you got these players that are coming that will you've got I'm trying to think of the Aaron Judge. You got these players that are coming back that are going to be, if they continue playing the way they're playing, the Hall of Fame will kind of get a boost again, where you can compare them to some of the greats. You'll be able to compare Trout to Willie Mays and
Trout's comparable. Yeah, he is.
And you're going to see that happening again.
So good stuff. I think we're I'm going to get the comparison between Scott Rowland and Ken Caminiti, and then we'll pick up with the second half of the Mac, Jack, Pags, and Paul, whoever we are.
So I will be back in a little while. I'm going to be back next time. You won't see my face because I'm going to be driving. I do have my arm wrestling tournament that I got to get to. But I will be back for the second half of this show from the car.
All right. I'm going to arm wrestle Ken Caminiti compared to
something tells me you'll lose.
Rowland. Somehow I'm going to lose this arm wrestle, though, because I'm fighting myself. All right. We're going to take a break. I'm going to get those commercials up in just a second here. And then we'll be back for the second half of the show. Let's start off with Mean Joe Green.
Please, give him out.
Mr. Green? Mr. Green?
Yeah.
You need any help? I just want you to know, I think you're the best ever.
Yeah, sure.
Want my Coke? It's okay, you can have it.
No.
Really, you can have it.
Okay.
A Coke and a smile makes me feel good. Makes me feel nice.
Be around.
That's the way it should be. I like to see
Hey, kid.
the whole world smiling with me. Coca-Cola and smile. Have a Coke and
Thanks, Mean Joe.
smile.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready. I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, get any.
My baloney has a first name. It's O-S-C-A-R. My baloney has a second name. It's M-A-Y-E-R. Oh, I love to eat it every day. And if you ask me why, I'll say, 'cause Oscar Mayer has a way with B-O-L-O-G-N-A.
Oscar Mayer, the first name in Bologna.
How's that?
Supporting the needs of our veterans. That's the goal of all of us at Team AmVets. Like Mitch, Carlos, and Kevin from our Welcome Home team that brings furniture to our vets.
We are Team AmVets.
Or Linda from our thrift stores who brings you great bargains every day.
I am Team AmVets.
And John, who picks up your thrift store donations that support California veterans programs.
I am Team AmVets.
Visit our website or Team AmVets thrift store to donate or shop today.
Join the team!
Hey, my friends, you know what's coming. April 11th, the great book, Roy White, From Compton to the Bronx, Roy White's autobiography. The great Ian O'Connor, four-time New York Times best-selling author, says that Paul Semendinger does a masterful job capturing the essence of the great right fielder, Roy White, as dignified a Yankee as there's ever been. Go out now, pre-order your book, and it will be at your house on or about April 11th. The great book, From Compton to the Bronx. You don't want to miss that great book.
You know, one of the best things about being an ex-big leaguer is getting freebies to the game. Call the front office, bingo. And once these fans recognize me, I probably won't even have to pay for my light beer from Miller. Down it, I love them. These fans know I drink light because it's less filling and it tastes great. Good seats, huh?
You're in the wrong seat, buddy. Come on.
Oh, I must be in the front row.
Come on.
Light beer from Miller. Everything you always wanted in a beer, and less.
Good seats, hey, buddy. He missed the tag. He missed the tag.
When you drive to Wendy's and order a single, you get more beef than the Whopper or the Big Mac. At Wendy's, you never have to ask, where's the beef?
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
All righty. It looks as though we've got Jack back. Pags is obviously getting into his car. Hey, Jack.
Hey,
so I got the numbers here. Should I wait for and here's Mac.
No,
Mac is back.
Just a quick comment, like on the Roy White book.
Yes.
Will it be in the stadium souvenir shops? Because it does belong in the Yankee Stadium store, because I'm sure a lot of fans would like to buy the book and they'll get exposed to it and it'll be right there for the fans coming to Yankee Stadium.
I would hope that the book is in the store at Yankee Stadium. I would have obviously no control over that. That's the Yankees and their merchandising department who is going to make that decision.
Hey, Doc, I just discovered how to use the avatar. So that's what I put up there when I stopped the cam right now. So there's my avatar. Jack, you have to click on a button here or something to get your own avatar. But
wait, if I click on yours and push it, you mean I'll get the full Mac?
No, no, I would have to stop the cam like this and then I'm back. But you got 3 dots on yours that you can have your own avatar.
I don't even know what an avatar is now. Come on, what are you starting?
Doc, you can have one too. You can all sit here and have avatars.
All right. Well, maybe we'll try that. But here you go. The whole war debate, it just gets silly because it's people talking against each other and like on different planes and all that. But WAR is obviously an accumulation of all of the other stats to try to put it all together in one handy place to say this is a reference point with which to begin to say how to compare players. But it's neither here nor there. Pags was bringing up Ken Caminiti and Scott Rowland. Caminiti played 15 years. Rowland played 17. So Rowland played more. Caminiti hit 272 for his career. Rowland hit 281. So Rowland hit better than Ken Caminiti. Caminiti hit 239 home runs. Rowland hit 316. So a significant amount of more home runs. He had a higher batting average. He hit more home runs. Caminiti drove in 983 runs. Scott Rowland drove in 1,287 runs. So he drove home hundreds of more runs. He hit, 80 more home runs, and he had 9-point better batting average. And he played for 2 more years. So I don't think there's, if you want to use traditional statistics, I don't think there's anywhere where you could say Ken Caminiti was better than Scott Rowland. It's not even a question.
I'll kill your whole argument. Jeff Kent, who's not in the Hall of Fame, belongs in the Hall of Fame more than both. And he was a second baseman, and I can argue second base is a harder position to play than third because you got to pivot, the double play, this and that, got to cover more ground. So, but I don't want to get into the debate what's harder to play second or third base. But Jeff Kent has more home runs than any second baseman in the history of baseball. So when you consider that one stat in itself, more home runs than any other second baseman in baseball history, come on. How's he not a Hall of Fame? And he has the longevity and
right. There are second basemen. Again, I don't think we want to get into the whole long debate and all that, but there are second basemen who were better than Jeff Kent who are not in the Hall of Fame yet. Guys like Bobby Grich, Lou Whitaker, even Willie Randolph, I believe, have better overall numbers outside of the home runs than Jeff Kent. And they're not in. So you could argue that those guys should go in before Jeff Kent. The thing
I can't let that remark just pass so easy. Guys are better, and you name a few better than Jeff Kent. I'll debate that. I really will.
Again, we don't have. I'll just go with the idea of WAR. Bobby Grich had 71.1. Chase Utley 65.4. Lou Whitaker 75.1. Willie Randolph 65.9. Jeff Kent 55.4.
And 377 home runs.
But that's part. See, here's you know what? When I was a teacher, and the marking period would end, and a kid would be on the borderline, right? Like let's say the marking period ends, and your average for the marking period is a 79.5, and you go, well, I mean, I wasn't a teacher that did this, but technically that's a C plus. It's not a B minus. A B minus is an 80. The kid goes, can't you give me half of a point? And you go, sure, I could give you half a point. In fact, I'll give you 5 points. Oh, good. Then I get an 84. Oh, no. I'll give you 5 points. I'll take one of those things that made up your grade to be a 79.4. I'll give you 5 points on your third test from the marking period. Right? That doesn't move your average up to an 80. It moves you up to a 79.6. So part of that WAR stat includes all those home runs, right? Like it's a piece of the 79 includes all of your homework, all of your quizzes, all of your tests, all of your performance throughout the marking period. All those things together count. And that's what WAR does. WAR tries to accumulate all those different things and say, this is the value that this player brought forward.
Jeff Kent was an MVP.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know about the others. Okay.
But we'll leave the argument alone for now.
Could we all agree that catcher is probably the hardest position to play in baseball?
Yes.
Don't you
Thurman Munson belongs in the Hall of Fame.
But is he better than Carlton Fisk?
No, because Fisk had a longer career, and I think Fisk has the most home runs of any catcher. Right? We go there.
Right.
But I think Munson belongs in the Hall of Fame. So, I think Pags might want to jump in on the Pete Rose question. So let's go here. Who is more likely to survive their current downfall and revive their career in New York? Is it Ben Simmons or is it Zach Wilson? Which of those two guys is going to better have a career going forward? Ben Simmons or Zach Wilson? What do you think?
Well, the only way Zach Wilson will be able to survive this is if Aaron Rodgers becomes the quarterback of the Jets. And that would probably save him and have him stay in New York. They'll have a veteran quarterback, a great quarterback to learn from. So I think that's the only way Zach Wilson would survive in New York. Ben Simmons is more a mental issue than it is a playing issue. I mean, he's still one of the greatest defensive players, I would think, or I wouldn't say the best, but he's up near the top defense players in the league. He can't shoot anymore. And that's more of a mental problem than it is a physical problem. So I think that Zach Wilson would survive better than Ben Simmons would.
Yeah, I'm not sure, Mac, that Simmons is an elite defensive player anymore, because if he was, he wouldn't have gotten benched by the Nets. They're elite defensive players all across the NBA, and they're still in the starting lineup, even though they don't score, because they give you like so much on the defensive end. Like even now, part of the net deal, for Kyrie Irving, they got Dorian Finney-Smith from the Mavericks. He's been starting for the Nets. The guy just doesn't score. He hardly shoots. But he's in the starting lineup because he gives you a lot of good defense, on the court there. So I think Simmons, by getting benched, that kind of tells you he's maybe not quite the elite defender anymore, and he gives you nothing on offense. And you're 100% right, Mac, when you say about Simmons, it's got to be a mental block. It's just got to be mental at this point.
Yeah, Jack. Because before that happened, he was an elite defensive player, and he also could shoot. He could take over a game once in a while when Embiid wasn't playing well. I remember he had like 41 points one time. So he could do that. Not that he did it all the time, but he definitely before he had that problem, before he had that breakdown or whatever you want to call it, he was definitely one of the top defensive players in the league.
Oh, you're absolutely correct, 100%. But he's not that anymore, and he's just been getting worse and worse. And they've tried to baby him. They've tried everything with him, and it's just not working anymore at all. Now, as far as Zach Wilson, at least with Zach Wilson, I'm looking for a path. He could be the backup quarterback, and he's one injury away from getting in the lineup if he's the backup, and all he needs is to put 1 or 2 games together, and everyone gets excited about him again, saying, oh, Zach's getting his potential. So I'm not optimistic about either guy, but if one of them is going to have a sudden turnaround, I would think it would be Zach Wilson if the opportunity presented itself. Now, Simmons is going to get the opportunity sooner than Wilson will, okay? But Simmons, I think, is like so far gone. He's just been like just sinking performance-wise. You never know. I'm going to guess on the Zach Wilson, but
Jack, they just got a new offensive coordinator too. Which may help Zach Wilson too. Bringing in Hackett might help.
Yeah, good point. Yeah,
I think the problem here is Zach Wilson is. I mean, Ben Simmons has been around a while, right? I don't play basketball, right? So you're talking about a guy who's played and who has a history of being able to perform. In the NBA, compared to a guy who really hasn't performed, and there's got to be something that's part of Zach Wilson's personality that doesn't quite jive, doesn't quite fit in, doesn't quite work within that Jets clubhouse, which is going to prevent him from being able to be a player, especially in a position like quarterback, that other players rally around and play well for. We saw Zach Wilson say some things after at least one game during the season that just passed, where he didn't take any of the blame Then we see when the Jets put in the backup quarterback, the players saying, like, he's a real quarterback. I'd go through war for this guy, but they didn't say that for Zach Wilson. Then you see guys like Sauce Gardner and other guys burning cheeseheads now, begging Aaron Rodgers to come to the Jets. If you have the locker room, if you're considered like a player on par with your teammates, I don't think they're going to be burning cheeseheads in order to get somebody else there, no matter how good he is. They might say, hey, look, yeah, it would be great to get a Hall of Fame quarterback. Nothing against Zach. But they're just saying, like, we don't want Zach. That's basically what I'm getting for that. So I think he's got a long way to go to build his own reputation back up. Yeah. His skill set looks terrible. So I don't see him making an impact at all in New York. I think his days in New York are over.
Well, I think they're going to keep him. I think they're going to keep him. And I think, he's a young kid too, Doc, right? He's a young kid that made mistakes. Playing under Rodgers will teach him a little professionalism. The new offensive coordinator will help him out, maybe show him how to become a quarterback. And Aaron Rodgers is a coach on the field. I mean, the guy can call his own plays. So I think if you're going to compare the two, I think Zach survives it better than Ben Simmons.
I got to point out, Mac, Aaron Rodgers hasn't signed with the Jets yet. So, I mean, we think it's close, but it might not happen.
I just read something about.
Go
ahead, Jack.
I'd like to just veer off a little bit because if we don't mention it, I'll feel pretty bad. One of the great receivers in NFL history passed away a day ago, Otis Taylor. And I remember Otis Taylor from the AFL days, and then when the AFL merged with the NFL. And if anyone wants to Google Otis Taylor, just go to YouTube to Super Bowl IV, the Chiefs against the Vikings, and see Otis Taylor's touchdown pass where he shook two defenders, broke loose. And he was one of those great receivers for the Chiefs. He was a version, let's say, a Tyreek Hill before, there was a Tyreek Hill. But Otis Taylor was an absolutely sensational receiver and a key part of those Kansas City Chiefs teams of the AFL in the early Super Bowl years, who won Super Bowl IV. And he passed away at age 80, the family was suing the NFL, things with dementia, maybe too many hits, a common problem having a long career in the NFL. But he was really one of the great receivers of his era.
I think Otis Taylor, I don't know if you compare him to Tyreek Hill because Tyreek Hill was just smaller and faster. I think maybe A.J. Brown would be a better comparison where he can break. He's a bigger receiver and he can break them. He can put moves on you. But anyway, great wide receiver for the Chiefs.
I could tell you, Otis Taylor's touchdown in Super Bowl IV shows the way the game has changed, the mindset of players. Otis Taylor scores this sensational touchdown, breaking two tackles, and he spikes the ball in the end zone. But no one is meeting him in the end zone. They're waiting for him to run back to the sideline, and then they mob him. In this day and age, they'd run out onto the field and they'd be waiting for selfie, all the players. They'd have their dance or whatever, their routine all planned out, which I'm not against. I like seeing the modern players having a lot of fun. As long as you don't demean the opposition in any way, I'm all for having the fun. But at that time, it was different. They didn't run out onto the field and hug the guy. They had to wait till Otis Taylor came back to the sideline.
Yeah.
How did you ever feel about, we never talked about this, as you talk about celebrations and things like this. When I became a football fan, it was during the days of the New York Sack Exchange. And, so my first real exposure to football is Mark Gastineau gets a sack and then he does the sack dance. I thought it was great. I thought it was fun. But that was normal to me. I watched Super Bowls and stuff like that with Terry Bradshaw and stuff. I don't know how much I really paid attention to all those things. But I'm watching Mark Gastineau do the sack dance, and I think, hey, that's kind of fun. And then, of course, the NFL for a while eliminated that. Now they have celebrations in the end zone and stuff. But how do you feel about that sack dance? Was that showing the opposition up? Was it a good thing? What do you think in retrospect, all these years later?
I think, I don't know how Mac feels about it, because Mac is an old time type guy who I could tell believes in respect, as we all do, in tradition. But the modern NBA players, NBA, NFL, but I'm using the NBA as an example. In the past, when the clock would be winding down, let's say one team's up 20 points, and the time is running out, 3, 2, 1, a player would just take a shot, he'd have the ball in the air, and the buzzer would go off. It was normal. No one gave a darn about it. No one's showing up the opposition. It happened in an NBA game a couple of years ago. Russell Westbrook was ready to fight because he felt his team was being shown up. It was a harmless thing, someone taking a 3-point. It wasn't like they dunked the ball and then they taunted the other team. Nothing like that. And Russell Westbrook was talking about tradition. And I'm thinking, you idiot, tradition is they used to shoot the ball at the end when the time went 3, 2, 1. The players don't understand, what tradition is to a sense. Everyone is so sensitive getting shown up. Tony La Russa, Doc, you can remember in baseball, he chastised one of his players because he swung on a 3-0 account with his team up something like 9-0. La Russa wants him to take 2 strikes, then you have permission to swing because we don't want to hurt the feelings of the other team. I like the attitude of Bryce Harper. He says, yeah, let me celebrate. Let the pitcher celebrate. He strikes me. Remember Dennis Eckersley?
Yeah.
That was a bit of old time, but he would point.
That was La Russa's team.
I didn't even realize that. Wow. La Russa, the guy who made all the excuses for Mark McGuire, all along. But I think there's a difference between genuinely trying to show someone up and having fun. You don't want to do something in their face like Thibodeau did with the Giants. The quarterback's lying on the ground and he's celebrating a sack. You don't celebrate if a guy might be hurt.
Well, he didn't know he was hurt, Jack. He didn't know that, or he wouldn't have done that. But anyway, I think professionalism is, when Emmitt Smith scored a touchdown or Barry Sanders scored a touchdown, they handed the ball to the referee. They said,
pretend you've been here before, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. We've been here before. Taunting is now an NFL rule. If you say anything out of the way to somebody, they might penalize you. So they're trying to control it. I think the players should have some fun. I don't think if you're losing 21-0 and you stop somebody on 3rd and 1, why are you celebrating? You're losing 21-0. So it does get out of control sometimes. You did your job. That's what you're getting paid for. Do your job. But yes, have a little fun when it's a big moment. That's all.
What was the sack dance inappropriate?
No.
Listen, if I was an offensive lineman, I would have punched him in his mouth.
Well, that would happen, right? Jackie Slater or whatever, right?
Yeah.
I don't celebrate.
I don't blame him for punching him in the mouth because it is kind of showing him up a little. You're showing up the guy you're going up against. You're showing him up a little bit. I can understand that. I can.
We talked about Mickey Mantle before. He always used to keep his head down after a home run. He didn't want to show up the pitcher. He used to be very modest around the bases. And pitchers have been known to throw at batters out of spite, the next batter after they give up a home run. And I've always hated that. I've always been for handing out a big-time suspension. You intentionally hit a guy, I'm shutting you down for 20 games. Next 20 games, you can't play. You're out, no pay. Let the league appeal it, because that's dangerous stuff. You throw at them. The only time I ever was okay with throwing at a bat, and not that I would have supported it, there was this play on the Mets, Derek Bell. He hit a home run, but he's standing at home plate. He's saying, "Oh my God," like he's kind of going on and on, and next time
so you're going to deny the pitcher the pitcher to come inside on the batter. A lot of times the batters will stand there and take the hit so they get to walk. So I listen. You can't, unless you're if you throw at a guy's head, Jack, you deserve the suspension. Definitely deserve a suspension. But if you hit the guy to get him off the plate, if he's crowding the plate, you have as much right to that plate as the batter does.
Well, remember that movie Major League, that fictional character, the Duke, who threw out his own son in a father-son game. You remember that character there? Yeah.
I remember that.
Okay.
Interesting stuff. All right. So one other quick sidebar. I also have this theory that everybody's favorite Rocky movie is the Rocky movie that they first watched when they became a fan of the Rocky franchise. So, my first Rocky movie that I saw in the theaters was Rocky 3. And so that's always been my favorite. And the people whose first Rocky movie was Rocky. I know people younger than me who are big Rocky 4 fans because that's when they first, oh my goodness, I went to the theater to see Rocky 4 and things like that. But anyway, all that being said, did either of you guys see the new Creed movie? And do you have a review?
Not yet.
I didn't see it yet. I'll get around to seeing it. It wasn't like a must-see. 2 other boxing movies are coming out, Pep on Willie Pep, and the one on George Foreman at the end of April.
Oh, really? When are they coming out?
The Foreman's one's coming out, like I said, the end of April. The one on Willie Pep is coming out pretty soon. You saw the latest Creed movie. You said you were going, right?
Yeah. I went on Sunday night.
Don't tell us what happened, but
I've been away.
Yeah. No. I don't want to know all that stuff, even though I'm trying to leak out. But was it a good movie?
Yeah, I'll give it 2 thumbs up. It was enjoyable. It was, without giving anything away, it's just like Creed 2 and Creed 1, and it's you know what it is. It's good feel good movie.
Is it him against his little brother or a friend that was like his brother?
He fights a friend, yes, a kid who he grew up with.
Yeah,
that's an interesting storyline.
Okay.
Let me ask you this: does it bother you at all that Stallone somehow has been disassociated from the Rocky franchise? Because Creed is part of the Rocky franchise.
Absolutely.
I don't want to hear that Creed is a franchise onto itself.
No, there is no Creed without Rocky. I mean, it's part of that. That's like saying C-3PO is its own whatever. I don't know anything about Star Wars, but that's its own franchise. R2-D2. No, you don't have that without Star Wars.
But Chuck Wepner was the inspiration for Rocky, and there were so many scenes in the Rocky movies based off Wepner's life and what happened in the ring, getting thrown out of the ring by Andre the Giant when Wepner was in that mixed match. Even the way Stallone got up holding the ropes was the way Wepner got up in the ring. The way Wepner motioned, come on, to Ali. Stallone did it. Rocky did it with Creed. And all Stallone ever did for Wepner, he did try to get him in a future Rocky movie to have a speaking part, but Wepner unfortunately had a late night out, didn't come ready to read his lines the correct way. So the part was never put in the movie. But I thought Stallone could have done some more because he was very friendly with Wepner. And if there wasn't a Chuck Wepner, there wouldn't have actually been a Rocky, because Sylvester Stallone was a fan in the stands in Cleveland when Muhammad Ali fought Chuck Wepner. And he admits he's getting so excited, wanting to see this guy go the distance. That inspired his thoughts. So in that sense, I'm not too sympathetic to Stallone. That kind of annoys me. I know I would take care of a guy who basically inspired me. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have gotten not only the Rocky movies, but think of all the other movies. Like Pags is going to an arm wrestling thing. Stallone, Over the Top. He did the most famous arm wrestling movie of all time.
Probably the only arm wrestling movie of all time.
One thing about Rocky 1 I wanted to mention to you, Doc, in education. I know this sounds crazy. You're going to laugh about this. The fictional character Gazzo, who Rocky rode around, he's the type of guy who possibly would have gotten incarcerated at some time or been put on probation for whatever. If I'm a judge, I make Gazzo a dean in a school for high school kids, because the way he could handle problems, the way he handled Rocky and the Bodyguard, I could see him pulling a kid aside, saying, "Look, I'm just throwing a name for the heck of it. Johnny don't like you. Some guys hate for no reason." Like the way he explained it to Rocky and made peace. I would love him to be a dean in a troubled school.
Oh my God.
He would really, handle conflicts.
Yeah, take her to the zoo. Take her to the zoo. All right. So your next question is something I can't really help. You guys are going to debate this one yourself. Ultimately, will the Dallas Mavericks benefit by the Kyrie Irving trade? Is it a good trade for the Mavericks? What do you guys think?
Well, I think it's a good trade. It does improve the team somewhat. They haven't won a lot together. Kyrie played well without him. I know they can win without Kyrie, but it does make them a better team. Are they going to be contenders because of Kyrie? No, not at all. They need a defense. They're all offense. They need a defense to play and to be an NBA contender. So, yes, it does make them better. No, it will not make them a contender until they get a better defense.
The answer is flat out no. I mean, they haven't been playing well since Kyrie got there. They got 2 stars, and it's just they're going to get on national television more. So it'll help the franchise in the sense that the Dallas Mavericks are going to be a little more an appealing road team. So fans are going to be a little more anxious to see them play because both Luka and Kyrie are entertaining together, 2 high-profile impact players. But no, I could say Kevin Durant going to the Phoenix Suns is absolutely going to make them better. Absolutely puts them in the mix to win the NBA championship. I could say that. I could say certain deals make teams better, but not this one. Not Kyrie with.
Well, Jack, you're comparing teams now. I mean, the team is already good without Durant. Durant latches on to teams. It's already good team. They would still be up in the playoffs contending. Without Kyrie there, they won't contend. I agree with that because their defensive team is no good. You gotta have a good defense to win in the NFL and the NBA, like the Celtics. You've got to have a good defense to win in the NBA. Kyrie does not make them a worse team because of the trade. They definitely got more scoring capability now. So I don't say it's a no. It's definitely not a yes, but I definitely don't think it's a definite no.
Well, I'm gonna counter that with this. Last season, the Phoenix Suns had the best regular season record in the NBA, and they lost in the playoffs to the Dallas Mavericks. Now, if the Dallas Mavericks played the Phoenix Suns this year, Dallas isn't beating Phoenix.
Oh, I agree.
Kyrie's Mavericks are not beating Durant's Suns.
Oh, I agree.
They meet up in the playoffs. And this is said with the Suns, who won't have the best regular season record this year because Durant joined them with the season in progress. And Durant is coming off an injury now. Let's see where he's going to be in the playoffs. But if he's healthy in the playoffs, Dallas isn't beating Phoenix.
Oh, I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. Definitely.
So that means Kyrie really hasn't improved them. He hasn't had an impact. Now, conversely, right. Mac, let's make believe Kyrie went to Phoenix and Durant went to Dallas. The equation changes. I don't think Kyrie would improve Phoenix, but Durant would certainly improve Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about Durant and Kyrie, there's no doubt about it. But to say he doesn't improve the Mavericks, I think is totally wrong. I think it's totally wrong. I think that he does improve the Mavericks.
Well, their one-loss record since he's been there, they haven't, it hasn't shown. But like you say, give it time. They have to play together a little more.
Definitely.
We'll see what happens.
Definitely.
All right, good stuff. You mentioned a couple of players that you said were entertaining together in your answer just a few moments ago, Jack. Well, Fox hired Derek Jeter to work its studio show. Will him working alongside Alex Rodriguez make an impact? Will that be something that's watchable? Will they be entertaining together? What do you think with the new baseball show with Derek Jeter and A-Rod together?
In the beginning, there'll be a big curiosity factor. I mean, Jeter's a big name. He's going to be in the booth. But Derek Jeter's Derek Jeter. And I think the fascination to a lot of people with this is him sitting with A-Rod. But knowing Jeter's personality, he's always going to be cordial and polite to everybody. That goes without saying. He's going to be focusing more, Jeter, on joking around with Big Papi, David Ortiz in the booth. Oh, Yankees, Red Sox, they'll laugh because Big Papi's charismatic. Frank Thomas is part of that team, but Frank Thomas isn't as charismatic as Big Papi in that sense, but he's there. He does his job. He does a credible job. And then there's A-Rod. For whatever reason, A-Rod's always trying to get on Jeter's good side now. And if I'm A-Rod, I'll be quite honest about it. I'd be a little sick of Derek Jeter in a certain sense. I mean, think of this, guys. Just think of this that we've never mentioned. When Jeter's number was retired or whatever, they had a day from at the stadium. They brought out his good friends. I mean, Andy Pettitte, Mariano Rivera, Posada, Tino Martinez standing there, but no A-Rod. How many seasons did A-Rod play next to Jeter? I mean, this is a guy who played next to you all those years. A-Rod wasn't there. Now, A-Rod was serving a suspension for the PED stuff, but the Yankees didn't have A-Rod there because I guess they may have thought people were going to react to it, and this is Jeter's night. They didn't want to take away from it. I mean, wouldn't you be a little ticked? Listen, if they had a night for one of us for this show, and one of us,
they are. Mac, you didn't tell Jack?
Not yet.
Yeah. All right. Sorry. Go on.
I mean, how am I supposed to feel? You're having this night, you're retiring Mac's number, and I'm, not invited on that particular show for that ceremony. But
I think, Jack, I think you're mad now that Doc is coming to see me before he sees you. So that's what you're comparing it to.
Okay. Well, I see you there, like, the space time and all. But the only way, it creates a big buzz. Derek Jeter, him and A-Rod have to get into healthy debates. It could be on baseball, this and that, without any animosity involved, without any tension, like we go back and forth. But it's always, A-Rod's going to keep trying to get on Jeter's good side. Jeter's basically going to ignore A-Rod, be polite to him, but not go out of his way to joke with A-Rod once in a while. Hey, Alex, to put his arm around him and kid him. And it's going to be this type of thing too. It carries over onto the show. When it comes time to get a bite to eat for lunch or something on a given day, Jeter's not going to get together with A-Rod for that or whatever. And supposedly the hatchet was buried, or like Jeter says, whatever went on between them was so long ago it doesn't bother him. And you get the feeling it really maybe doesn't bother Jeter anymore. But he's put that wall between him and A-Rod. And I think that's going to translate onto the show where it's going to be like strictly business. They'll be joking, of course, but I think Jeter's going to be joking with Big Papi a lot more than he will with Alex.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Jack. I mean, Jeter's been working on his personality. He did that, that big special. He's doing the Subway commercials. He's trying to loosen up a little bit. It kind of looks a little funny to me sometimes. I don't get Alex Rodriguez at all. I don't get his personality. He's kind of goofy. I mean, he really, to me, when I watch him, doesn't add a lot to the show. As Jack said, Big Papi is hilarious. The other guy, I'm not sure of. I mean, he's more factual, I think, more a baseball guy, more serious. But listen, it could work out. I mean, it might. I don't think it's going to be the best show out there for sure. But like I said, Jeter's trying. He's really trying to get out there and try to be more funny than he was before. He didn't seem that like he had a big sense of humor at one time. but doing them Subway commercials is kind of pretty good.
I'll say those Subway commercials are really, really well done because you think they're doing a documentary about an athlete, and it's really they're talking about a sandwich.
Right.
Those are definitely impressive. Yeah, like I have to be honest, I don't really care how A-Rod and Jeter talk and react in the booth. It's not even something I'm gonna probably tune into at all. Yeah, they were teammates and they didn't get along. And I think even in Jeter's documentary, I believe, like he said, I have a long memory or whatever, that kind of thing. So, you know what? Like we were saying earlier, and I think this is the problem with the argument earlier with the retired numbers and things like that. Like, people are personalities and people become friends. They become unfriends. They become friends again. I mean, things are fluid. And so you're like, well, you can wear my number. Well, now all of a sudden you do something bad. Can you still wear my number? I don't want you to wear my number anymore, but it's not your number. It's the team's number and all that kind of stuff. So will they get along? I'm sure they have to get along because they're going to be on TV together. And will it work? I'm sure they'll make it work because they're professionals and they want to keep their jobs. I'm not sure. Pags, are you there? Pags is sort of in the background. I don't know if he's able to put himself into the show or if I should put him into the show.
Yeah, put him in.
Let's see if we got him. I'm not sure. Pags, are you there?
I am here.
All right. Good. We have one last question. This is a good one for you. The question is this. Indications are that if Pete Rose were ever reinstated, he would not get into the Hall of Fame. And we talked about the Hall of Fame earlier. But he would not get into the Hall of Fame based on the character issues. Should it be insisted that the vote is confined to what he did on the field and nothing more? So I'll just give you my quick take on this, and then you guys can debate it. Right now, there's a thing in the Hall of Fame that's called the character clause, and that character clause has been used against Pete Rose, the gambling and all that kind of stuff. It's one reason Curt Schilling's probably not in the Hall of Fame. It's the thing that really is the thing that people are saying, well, if you're using steroids, obviously you have bad character and all that. We could argue all that. But if the character clause is there, you can't say that now that Pete Rose is reinstated, we want to consider it without the character clause. You don't get to say that the rule applies to everybody else and not him. The rule is for everybody. Can you say, let's eliminate the character clause and just pick the best baseball players whose performance on the field was the best? You could say that, but that would then have to be a rule for everybody. That's how I see that. Let's hear what you guys have to say.
Well, I'll go. Pete Rose has nobody but himself to blame for the position he's in right now. It wasn't just because of the gambling. They were going to put him on the ballot at one time, but he continued to lie. Is what he did more allowed or better now that gambling has become such a big thing in sports and baseball? I don't think so. I think that that he did something that isn't in that category. He betted on baseball, maybe his team, maybe not his team, maybe somebody bet for him. I'm not sure what happened there. But if he just came out and just told the truth, if he admitted it, if he said, yeah, I bet on baseball, I screwed up, I'm trying to get help, I'm whatever he could have done at that time for some kind of reconciliation, he might be in the Hall of Fame right now, but he chose not to do that. So I don't blame baseball. I don't blame the Hall of Fame. I blame Pete Rose for not being in the Hall of Fame right now.
No, Jack, you're muted.
So if he became eligible, Mac, you're saying you wouldn't vote for Pete Rose if he was eligible?
Well, he's not eligible. That's
no, the question is if he became eligible.
Yeah, I vote for him.
Oh, so there you go. Okay, but that's the point. If he became eligible based on him being a great player. Before Pax goes, there's been a lot of jerks in baseball, okay? And the top 10 one would be Barry Bonds. No one seemed to like Barry Bonds. He was aloof. His teammates couldn't stand him. But if he became he actually was eligible. But if the PED thing if the voters were told to disregard the PED issue, that should have no bearing on their vote. Then obviously they should vote him in. They can't point to other character issues.
Yeah, but Pete Rose is the reason why he's not in, Jack. Well, he was eligible. What do you say he's eligible or not? Is he just kept lying? All he had to do was say, "I screwed up. I did gamble on baseball." That's all he had to do.
But some people still wouldn't have voted for him because they said lifetime ban. Anyone who bet on baseball, and they refuse. I mean, the Pete Rose thing we could go on and on about. I just feel if someone is eligible, you can find what they did on the field.
Well, that's basically what I was just saying. But you can't say that there's a character clause, and the character clause is something we're going to enforce. But in Pete Rose's case, we're not going to enforce it. Like, no, it's got to be the same standard for all the players. That's what I'm saying. Pags, we know you have strong feelings on this, so let's hear them.
Wouldn't if there was really a character clause, wouldn't they have to remove about a third of the Yankees that are in there? I mean, there are a lot of those Yankees players that were not very good people, from what I understand. And starting from like Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth, from what I understand, was a complete ignoramus. And I'm using that as a kind term for what he really was. You know, so truth of the matter is that a lot of these players are too full of themselves and aren't really good with the public, you know, because of the fact that they were born with the silver spoon, or if they weren't born with it, they wound up sucking on it too long. You know, so they feel like that they were above a lot of people. So the truth of the matter that I have with Pete Rose is that, yeah, he did this, and I understand what baseball's doing. At this point, they're waiting to induct him posthumously, because that's what should be done in this case. Paul Giamatti was the guy who said he would never be in baseball. While he's alive, he'll never be in the Hall of Fame. I think they're going to go by his wishes, you know, because I mean he was such a good baseball guy. Probably one of the better commissioners of baseball after we've seen what mess there's been after him. But that being said, I mean, yes, I don't think it should matter if the guy is, you know, an idiot or if he is an unfriendly person. Who cares? The guy hit 4,100 and some hits, and ain't never going to be broken. That will never be broken because there's nobody that's going to be around long enough to be able to close to it. So, yes, I believe that he deserves to be in. I believe he won't get in till he's dead. And at that point, they'll be able to celebrate him in the proper way. And, you know, it's because of the life choices that he's made that made it that way. And ultimately, you know, because I think once he goes in, then you'll start to see all of these other guys, all of the steroid guys start to get in. And I think that that's what they're waiting for. They got to let the first one in, and then they're going to start to let everybody else in.
Again, fair point. I'll just push back on one thing. I think Ichiro had more hits than Pete Rose if you count his Japanese career with his American career. So the idea that no one's going to get 4,100 hits, I think has just already been disproved. If somebody did it after his career, if Ichiro had been born in America and played his whole career and did the exact same stuff, he would have broken Pete Rose's hit record. No?
Yeah, but Rose,
that's the thing. He would have had to have been born here and played against the best in the world. I mean, I know that Japanese baseball is up there in the tier, but you don't say that the winner of the Japanese league is the best team in the world. You say the winner of the MLB is the best team in the world.
Well,
so you say that that's a 1A or a B level.
It's good.
Right. But Ichiro performed in the major leagues at basically the similar level than he did in Japan. I think what he proved is that he is an elite talent. My only point is another talent like him could come. It could be an American guy. It could be a Japanese guy or whatever. But there's the idea that no one's ever going to get 4,000 hits. I think Ichiro just proved that somebody just did. So.
Well,
but Steve Rose pointed out Ichiro didn't have a minor league career. Rose said, well, what about my minor league hits? if you want to consider that. So, there are different intangibles, but I agree with you, Doc. It's possible you're going to get a tremendous talent like Ichiro will make the big leagues when they're 19 years old and play till they're, 41, 42 and do it.
It's possible.
Yeah, my only point is somebody's going to, that will happen.
And there are players in there that have been found to use steroids in the Hall of Fame right now also. So I think the Hall of Fame is just, is Pax is. I think the Hall of Fame is just confused. I mean, Big Papi used steroids. We all know he does. He's in the Hall of Fame. And that's the truth. So
and my argument with the steroids is, and we've been over this before, the commissioner who oversaw the game during that era is in.
And so are some of the coaches.
And then there are managers that are in because they managed players who were steroid guys who wouldn't be in if those steroid guys didn't do what they did to help those managers win. So you can't say like, well, Roger Clemens or whatever. Well, Joe Torre's in the Hall of Fame, right? I don't know if Joe Torre wins some of those World Series if Roger Clemens isn't on his pitching staff. And if Joe Torre has fewer World Series wins, does he go in the Hall of Fame? I don't know. But you can't say that Mark McGwire with Tony La Russa, et cetera, et cetera. Like those guys, part of their legend was they were winning managers because some of the players they managed that were supposed steroid guys. So you can't say the manager can get in, but the players he managed didn't get in because they go hand in hand. And then the commissioner oversaw the whole thing. So
it's ridiculous.
It seems contradictory and confusing. I think your word confusing is a good one.
Hey, Doc, I got a question for you. And well, for everybody, really. Now, with all the injuries on the Yankees right now that they have, that's going to affect them this year. Does the medical staff have something to do with that? Should there be more of a process before you bring them on board and sign them contracts? Should there be more appointments and checkups and more thought into signing these guys?
I want to announce that since Rodon's injury, the Yankees did sign me. I got my baseball right here. I'm getting ready to go here, so I'll be flying down. I'll see you in Florida, Jack. I'm on my way down. Yeah, I do, Mac. I think something is obviously wrong somewhere with the system with the Yankees where they keep getting guys and with questionable medical histories and then being surprised or whatever when these guys end up hurt. Like Frankie Montas was hurt and they got him anyway. And when the Yankees got Harrison Bader, he was hurt. I spent a lot of time on the Dr. Sem show this morning at 7 a.m. talking about this. Like Harrison Bader, I think I still have the piece of paper here. His games played has gone down every single year. We won't count 2020. He played in 138 games in 2018, 128 games in 2019. 2020 was the COVID year. 2021, he played in 103 games. Last year, he played in 86 games. Like, at some point, you have to say, this guy's playing fewer and fewer games every year, and he seems to be getting hurt, and he's not in the lineup. If I'm the guy involved in making that acquisition, I think I'm looking hard at that. And if I discount it, well, okay. But then I cannot be surprised when in spring training he ends up with an oblique injury and he's going to be on the DL, and I better have a backup plan. And the Yankees don't seem to have a backup plan. I think that's where the problem is. Like, yeah, we're going to get this guy. He's healthy. We think, but if he doesn't stay healthy, we don't have a backup plan. I think that's where the problem is. I think whoever's looking at these medicals, there's something wrong because they keep getting hurt.
Let me say Harrison Bader, he's the poster guy for what's wrong with the World Baseball Classic tournament. He bailed out recently on Team Israel. He says, well, I think maybe I should be in camp with the Yankees getting ready for the season. Well, you'd be playing baseball, the World Baseball Classic. You'd be getting ready. I mean, what the heck? You're not sitting around. You're playing, and you're playing against live pitching. Again, your chances are you might go against elite pitchers there. But he wants to be in training camp, baby him, get him ready. I mean, I don't get this. I mean, Mac and myself talk about the older time athletes. They didn't get these hamstring pulls. As I'm getting old, I'm getting these injuries when I'm working out I didn't get before. I'm a bit disillusioned. But for a lot of years, I mean, I got a couple of pulled hamstring muscles when I was young. 3 days later, I was fine. I bounced back very, very quick. It was never an issue. And I did a lot of running, a lot of sprinting. Okay? So I don't get these guys. Like you point out, Doc, Harrison, Bader, you're looking at the injury history more and more and more. Sometimes I think with all this stuff going on, even with the Yankees with Giancarlo Stanton, just let everyone play. Throw them out there. Just be sure that they stretch enough and then leave it alone. I don't get this. Like, Mac, you're mentioning all these athletic trainers. Didn't these athletes train themselves to a point where they got to be world class? And once they really got to be world class athletes, they had all this at their disposal. And,
Sure.
and they're getting injured more.
Sure.
You know, Doc, you run marathons. You don't have a personal trainer, do you? Like, you don't have anyone who stretches you out, works with you, does this or that. You're doing it on your own knowledge. You know your own body. I'm sure you get hurt once in a while. Things come up. You figure out how to manage it on your own. You figure out how much rest you need. You figure out when you have to go to the doctor to take a look at it. Correct?
Yeah, correct.
Well, that's
I
like
had
Pags.
surgery a couple of years ago on my Achilles. Yeah.
That's like Pags.
Yeah.
Pags doesn't have a personal trainer when he arm wrestles, you know. So, you know,
Yeah.
he doesn't get hurt that much. Where these other guys that get hurt, they have personal trainers, right, Pags?
Well, I mean, I can't say. I mean, when people get hurt in arm wrestling, it's a whole different scenario. But I agree about what you're saying. That it's like the first person that comes to mind when you're talking about personal trainers and all this other stuff is the guy from the Mets. I call him Burrito Supreme, but I think his name is Vogelbach. That guy is like 310 pounds and still.
Yes.
All right. Good stuff, my friends. We're just about at the top of the hour. And so this has been the Mac and Jack and Pags and Dr. Sem and Paul and everybody else. This has been the debate show. Good debates, good stuff. Of course, anytime anyone disagreed with me, they were wrong. I was right. And none of that's true at all. So my dear friends, have yourselves a good day. They'll be back here again tomorrow for their Sunday sports program, 8 a.m. Make sure you catch it. Have yourselves a wonderful Saturday.
Take care, everybody.